Let's deal with state houses, because this is really our true fight. The federal government is pretty much lost, but we have so much we can save at the state level. Low T GOP at the state level, Greg. You are out there digging into this problem. How big of a problem is it? Because I see red states being pathetic all the time.
It's a major problem, and it's one that doesn't get nearly enough attention because national politics gets all the attention. Take a look at the school boards issue, Jesse, and how people have been paying attention more to school boards over the last 3 years. Why didn't people do it before? It's because there was no coverage of it. People simply were not paying attention to what was happening in their own backyards. The same thing is happening in state legislatures, and especially with red state GOPs. Some of the most ruby red states have some of the worst representation. I'll give you just a few examples. In the last legislative session in Wyoming, which is the state that Donald Trump won by a larger percentage than any other, their Speaker of the House blocked bills for universal school choice, a Florida-style parental rights and education bill, and a bill to ban child mutilation for minors. He blocked all three of those bills in the most Republican state in America that were supported by majorities of his caucus. I'll give you another example. South Carolina just did their whole debate over their budget. The Freedom Caucus in South Carolina tried to put in an amendment that would have defunded the DEI programs at every university in South Carolina. And the supermajority Republican legislature voted against it. You can go state by state by state, and it's a major, major problem. And that's why the State Freedom Caucus Network began 3 years ago. What we're doing is we're taking the House Freedom Caucus and building it in states all over America, because the same problems with that we complain about all the time with the national GOP, there are problems on a much larger scale in the states, and it doesn't get nearly the attention that it should.
Greg, I want to focus, now all that's really horrible, but I want to focus on this piece of trash in Wyoming for a moment. When is he up for re-election, and what do you need me to do to make sure that guy's political career is over?
Raise your voice about it, Jesse. That's all. It's the same. That they coincide with the federal elections I'm pretty sure in Wyoming. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. And so, yeah, we need to ensure this guy, at the very least, is not the speaker again. It's truly terrible. And the other point I want to make is, like, the stuff that comes out of your state legislatures affects your life in a much greater way than things that come out of DC on any given day. The Inflation Reduction Act, quote unquote, was a terrible law that's going to do terrible things. But you're not going to feel the effects of that as much as, your state legislature that allows child mutilation to keep being legal. This stuff is very important, and it gets not nearly the amount of attention it should. And we need to start paying attention to it. And that's why I joined the State Freedom Caucus Network, to get involved in all these local issues.
Tell me about central bank digital currencies.
Yeah, that's another huge one. And again, it's Republican states pushing for this. If for people in the audience who don't know what CBDCs are, it's essentially a push to have all money centralized in the federal government. So instead of having a private bank account, you would essentially have a bank account with the Federal Reserve. And if that sounds dystopian to you, that's because it is. And if you think your Republican state legislature will protect you from it, you are sorely mistaken. A CBDC bill over the objections of our Freedom Caucus just passed in South Dakota. And luckily, our Freedom Caucus successfully pressured Governor Nome to veto it, and they just voted to sustain her veto the other day. But similar bills are being proposed in red states all over America. There was one that they tried to pass in Arizona that our Freedom Caucus killed in committee. There's one that's going through in Montana right now that has already passed the Senate and is now going through the House. And these are going to be coming everywhere. Louisiana, literally everywhere. So your Republican state representative may be voting to end financial freedom for you. Pay attention to the politicians who do, and pay attention to the ones who actually are fighting back against it, which most of the time is the Freedom Caucus and all these legislatures.
Greg, come back soon. Keep doing it, brother.
Thanks for having me, Jesse. Always great to be on.